Learning how to code it's to develop your thinking skill. It's developing something that's called computational thinking skill. You're able to think efficiently, effectively, with step by step like a computer.
Coding for kids doesn't look like bunch of kids typing things on the computer.
You cannot just learn about math alone. The point of adding arts into STEM is that it helps with the creativity and the imagination. The US is they're very far. I think in Thailand, it's still very content-based. There's so many topics, we need to cover all of it. It's like memorization. We should make it more hands-on, more project-based. You shouldn't let young kids to be in the same room as an adult that is watching a TV as well. And the grandparents too.
Whoa, you have to get everybody on board. Everyone, no screen time.
Yeah, 0 to 6 is the golden period. And then the earlier you are, the more your experience and environment is going to impact your brain development.
ครูเอม
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You know what? I'm excited and happy every time I get a chance to learn from someone who is very different than me because we are in a totally different field, right? And from my experience, I found that this is a kind of great learning for me. We don't have to only learn from someone who's worked in the same field, for example, but from someone who's different. I get to learn about a lot of new stuff, and I love that.
That's great to hear. I would love to learn from you too.
Yeah. So this is going to be great. It's going to be fun. All right. So first of all, again, thank you for coming. And second of all, if I were to put some tags on you, I think the tags would be coding or coding for kids, child education, child development, U.S. education, Harvard, Canada education, and what else? The Little Beaver Lab. Did I miss anything?
That's a great summary of my entire life.
Okay, so we'll get to talk about that, all those things that I just mentioned. And I think it's very not only interesting but crucial to talk about this kind of thing, which for some people might seem a little distant from where they are in life, in occupation, in career. But I think it kind of plays some bigger role that could serve us in some way or another. Like for example, technology. Yeah, I think it plays great roles in all of our lives too, right? Yeah, so let's talk about all of those. So first of all, I want to know more about you. I just mentioned the Little Beaver Lab. So that's what you founded. It's extracurricular school.
Right, yes.
Right, okay. Tell us about the Little Beaver Lab.
Yes. So it's an enrichment school for little kids. So currently up to 6 years old. And then our goal is to maximize their learning period because 0 to 6 years old, it's the golden period in learning. And then it's when their brain grows the fastest. And then there is a lot of research from Harvard that it's when your brain is forming. So then at Little Beaver Lab, we try to teach them how to think and then develop the essential skills that they need for their future success. And we're doing that through STEAM education. So that
we're familiar with STEM, right? So it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But STEAM,
right?
So we just added a letter A into the STEM, which stands for arts. So what does art have to do with this technology or this coding thing?
Right. That's a great question.
Yeah.
But then I would like to talk about STEM first, right? Okay. So then the core, the heart of STEM is that you learn all these subjects together. So you learn it as a project. So it's project-based, it's hands-on learning. You learn through creating. And then it's very naturally the way that people learn, right? You cannot just learn about math alone, science alone, technology alone, right? They're all intertwined. It's very highly interdisciplinary. So then the point of adding arts into STEM is that it helps with the creativity and the imagination. So then there are like research talking about when there's arts in there, kids, they become more engaged. It's more exciting for them. They're more passionate about their project, and then they can remember more. They learn more from the STEM subjects with arts.
So that's very important because some people might think that, okay, all those science guy or engineers, they don't need like imagination in their work. They just calculate stuff. And no, actually it's on the contrary. They do need a lot of imagination too. And arts help with those things.
Yeah, especially you need creativity and imagination when you want to create something new, right? You want to be innovative. And then especially in STEM, in STEAM, in science, in technology, you always want to be creating something new. And art it's a very important point, and it makes things more hands-on.
Yeah. And I love how you answered my question earlier that you talk about coding, not just in the form of something like technical, but it's the way you think. So when you teach kids how to code, it's basically teach them how to think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So exactly. So the point of teaching coding in young kids, it's to teach them how to think. And then, for example, it's you call it computational thinking skills. And then, can you tell you the history?
Sure.
Of coding for kids?
Yeah.
Okay. So then it actually started and became popular from a professor from MIT. So his name is Seymour Papert. He is one of the founding professor at MIT Meteor Lab, but then he already passed away. So then for him at that time, he has he's very futuristic, and then he envisioned that technology, or at that time computers, can be more than just giving you information. It's like more than just passive learning from the computer. It's something that kids can use to create something that's meaningful and creative to them. And then by doing that, he developed one of the first programming language for kids, which is a turtle. It's called Logo. It's a turtle robot. And then kids can give the robot commands, and then it's going to draw pictures on the paper. And that is theme, right?
Right.
Yeah, you have like shapes, you have art, so you have math, you have arts, you have technology, you have science, so it's everything combined. So then from Seymour Papert, he believed that coding should be beyond just learning the content, but it's more about learning through creating something.
So now in my head, coding for kids doesn't look like bunch of kids typing things on the computer. It looks more like playing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's play-based, and that is so for adults, like coding. Okay, I'm not surprised that people would be having that understanding that it's going to be complicated like the adults coding. But then for kids, it's play-based, and then the commands that you use, it's like symbols. You use color, you use symbols. You can connect the coding blocks, and you can tell the robot to do different things. And then so that is for early kids, right? But then for a little bit older, you actually have an app that you can create animated projects, like coding projects. You can tell the character to move around, you can dance, you can sing, you can do many things. Like as young as like 4 or 5 years old, you can already do that.
So this might answer a lot of people's question in their mind right now, that do kids still need to learn how to code now that we have AI, for example, because we experience from what we have done or tasted or tried on our own that AI can do many things, including coding. So we don't need to write all these codes by ourselves anymore, but just give AI some prompts and just let them do the work. So the question is, why do kids still need to learn the basic or have the concept of coding?
Right. So I forgot to mention earlier that so then the point of coding, for learning how to code, it's to develop your thinking skills, right? There are so many research saying that it's developing something that's called computational thinking skill. And then basically it means that you're able to think efficiently, effectively, with step by step like a computer. And that is really important because you make better decisions. You can solve problems better. And that is especially very important in the digital era where it's so high tech, there's AI. Kids, they really need to develop their computational thinking that helps with critical thinking, with problem solving, with creativity. And it's like learning how to code, it's like developing the skills that you must have for the future. So then even if there is AI, right, you still need the ability to think, to be able to use AI.
Sure.
Yeah, it's more like it's not just you using AI, but it's more like you're thinking with AI.
Right.
Right.
That is so important.
Yeah, that is so important.
Yeah, and stuff. And that's giving them a great head start in life to like teaching them very early in their life. And then things could get like more and more complicated. And it's up to their imagination now how they would use technology to create stuff for some unseen things that we don't know in the future, like unseen problems or unmet problems that need solving in the future. We don't know that.
Yes.
Yeah, but if they have all these like strong foundation, of course they can develop on their own.
Yes, exactly. Especially when the world's very fast changing with technology now, right? You never know what's going to happen 10 years from now. Because if you think back like 5 years ago, it's different from where we are today, right? So the world's always changing. So that is why they especially need the thinking skills to be flexible and then to be adaptable to whatever scenarios that they're going to face in the future.
So apparently you're doing such an important job for the country and for the future of the world, basically, because you're armed and equipped these kids with something very important that they can use in the future. So to build our nation, to build the world into the better place, right? Yeah, so such an important job that you're doing right now. ว่าสวยหนึ่งที So do you think it's do you feel the pressure of this? Or you think that this is just something that you're passionate about and you just do your job?
Yeah, I think it's very fun. For me, it's very fun. I wake up every day looking forward to teaching kids to think about coding, to think about Little Beaver, think about STEAM. And then I think it came very naturally that I'm very passionate in this field.
That's the best kind of living your life. Like every day you wake up and you are happy with whatever you're about to do. Yeah, and you know why you do it too.
Yes.
Right. That's great. So can we go back a little to where it all started? Like where did it all come from for you to take interest in all this coding and this science thing? And also, how did you find out that you would love to work with kids?
That is a very great question because I feel like we have different life journeys, right? But for mine, it's not a straight line. So I think there's a lot of detour, a lot of trying, and I ended up where I am today. So then I would like to start from my undergraduate. So then I did my double degree. It's a bachelor in science, but then I did it in Canada, University of Toronto, and they required you to do a double major. Okay. So then I chose
Whatever two majors.
Whatever two majors.
Really?
Yeah.
You get to choose.
You get to choose. So then first I added neuroscience. I actually added economics in my third year.
All right.
Yeah. So then, so they don't care as long as you complete whatever, how many years, like it's up to you. But
so
then,
would you say that's an unusual combination of the majors, or a bunch of people already do this?
I think for me, I think neuroscience and economic, it's different, but then the required courses are quite similar because economic is basically mathematics, right? And then so neuroscience is science. So then they also required a lot of math. So then there is still like an overlap. So then that's why I added economics in my third year. I still graduated in 4 years.
Oh, okay.
So then neuroscience, economics, and then so most people, you have to pick your path. Right? So whether you're going to go into neuroscience, so after you graduated, whether you're going to go to neuroscience or you're going to do economics. It's like a two different path. You're going to do lab work or like corporate work. So I ended up doing corporate work.
So you chose economics.
I chose economics. Although I know that I have a passion in kids because I volunteered when I was Yes, I did a lot of internships and volunteering.
Yeah.
Like a lot of different things
Yeah.
to.
See, this is what I keep saying all the time, that one of the ways that you can find out who you are in this world or what you want to do in life is to try it out through like volunteer
Yes.
or through internship.
Yes.
And that's the best
Yes.
kind of like finding out
Yes.
what your path might be.
It's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. So then I volunteered with kids, and then that's when I realized I like kids. But then I still ended up choosing working
corporate
in.
work.
Yes, So my first job was in management consulting,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's great. It's great. It developed many skills. That is good. Colleagues are great. But then at the end of the day, it's not really my passion. So then while I was doing management consulting, I continued to volunteer.
Okay.
Like being a mentor for kids, like
I
on the
see.
weekends.
Uh-huh.
And then I ended up doing an internship at Chulalongkorn Hospital in the child psychiatry unit.
Okay.
So I think that at Chulalongkorn Hospital, that is where I think that's a turning point to where I decided and realized that I wanted to work in education. So then because it's a child psychiatry, so then there are many cases that there are kids, there are like young adults like coming in, and then they're like distressed in life, right? And then what I realized at that point is that one of the key factors to happiness is your ability to understand emotions.
Oh, okay.
Yes, understand emotions, regulate your emotions, understand what you're thinking, and you call it social emotional learning, which is something that's very big in the US, but then in Thailand, there is none. Like especially at that time in my generation.
Right.
So I got very passionate about social emotional learning in kids. I realized that it's something that should start early on. As soon as possible, like in kindergarten, you should start learning about emotions, labeling your emotions. You should talk about it like naturally.
Yeah.
And then I feel that it's something at that time was missing from our society. Think like my generation, your generation, right? It's very hard to talk about feelings.
Yes.
But now it got so much better.
Yeah, we're so exposed to
Yes.
all this content, which could be helpful and harmful at the same times. Yeah, you get to like have this skill to pick and choose and
Right.
to like screen stuff for yourself. But by the way, it helps to know that this is the kind of thing that we can openly talk about. And I'm
Yes.
sure you incorporated that into the Little Bhuvan
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And then, so at that moment, I realized that it should start early. So if it's early, it means school, right? It means education. So then I pursued another degree that's my second master's degree. It was it was at Harvard Graduate School of Education. And then when I arrived at Harvard, I met a professor. He is the director of a center. It's called Center on the Developing Child at Harvard, which is a very famous center. And then they're the lab that making the idea of early childhood like famous, that like they raise a lot of awareness on early childhood development. So then they said that 0 to 6 is like the golden period, the golden learning period. And then the earlier you are, the more your experience and environment is going to impact your brain development. And then imagine that it's a graph, right? It drops like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it means that the golden period, it's like the peak. And then as you grow older, it just drops like that. So then they said that is really important. Like every single second, like your brains are developing with like millions of like neural connections. Your brain is shaping.
Yeah.
So I realized that, wow, early childhood, it's so important.
You don't want to miss that window.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So it's a very important window. And there is like even a Nobel Prize winner, his name is James Heckman. And then he even like in his study, he even reported that every $1 that you spend on early childhood education, the return it's as high as like $14, $15 in the future.
When he put it like that.
Yeah. Now you can picture the numbers. So that's why it's very important in early childhood is very important. So then, okay, so now I realized I want to do early childhood, right? Because it's really important.
Right.
And then after I graduated from Harvard, I also work in a research lab. And then they do high technology stuff. So they do like augmented reality, they do eye tracking.
Whoa.
So this is like years ago, right? But then this has been going on for a long time, but still, when I think about it, I still feel that it's very high-tech stuff, right?
Yeah.
So then they can actually track your eyes when you're like reading a passage, and then they can tell if you're engaged or not. Right? So that whether you're looking at the words or you're just like looking at the ceiling.
Are you
looking at
daydreaming or?
it.
I see. So
Yeah.
very technology oriented.
Yeah, very technology oriented, and they do coding as well. And then they realize that, okay, like technology is very important. And so that's why it's where I want to combine early childhood and technology. So that's where it started. And so then after that, I pursue my PhD in early childhood coding.
Very focused now.
Very focused now. And so my advisor, she is the student of Seymour Papert, which is the person I mentioned earlier.
Right.
Right. So then she's like the direct line
Okay.
of so that is like, of early childhood coding. So that's why I went there. I learned a lot. And while I was doing my PhD, I also work in schools. And then like the kindergarten schools I work with, they're all associated with Harvard. So it's in Harvard Square. So then I get to see how children are learning, how children are learning social emotional learning. And I think I became very invested, like very passionate in this field. And of course, I got passionate to the point that I did my PhD in early childhood development. So
So working with kids, what would you say is the most important lessons that you got from them?
So then there are many lessons from them. And one of them is that happiness is very simple. They can find happiness like anywhere, all the time. Just like getting stickers, just getting the answer that they're looking for. It's all the simple things. Just getting to play with their friends, like being with their parents. It's like very simple things that makes them happy. So I realized that maybe happiness is not. It's always all around you. It depends on you, right? To find happiness. And then the second thing is that for little kids, they forgive each other very easily. And I think that is very sweet.
That's the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So then they don't hold grudges for a long time. I think it's according to research, it's because like the brain is still developing. And then they tend to live in the moment. They're not gonna hold the grudges. They're not gonna be like, you stepped on my foot 5 times yesterday, and today you knocked down my tower, and things like that, right? So then by just saying sorry, just like, oh, sorry, and then they're like best friend forever again.
And move on so
and move
easily.
on, yes, because in early childhood, relationship is very important. It's very important for them. And then what matters more for them, it's the relationships, like that they get to continue to play with their friends, right? So so that is the next thing. And
I mean, if only all of us grown-ups could still be like that.
Yeah.
You know, can you imagine like world leaders and politicians and everybody?
Yeah.
If they can just find the way to live with each other and be happy together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like communication is a key. Yes.
Yeah.
For them, it's just saying sorry, and then I didn't mean it, and then okay, it's fine, let's play.
Yeah.
And I think it's very sweet.
Right. You have mentioned the social emotional learning, right? Before that,
Yes.
there's a big focus in the U.S. Education. So, what would be other things that is the educational trend or
Right.
something that they kind of focus on, and we kind of maybe not into that much?
Right. So then if it's in the US, then because they're like the world leader in educational innovation. So then it means that they really care about creativity, like project-based learning. You get to do projects. Another thing is called inquiry-based learning. So it means that you ask question. So kids, they ask question, they come up with question, and then they try to find out the answer on their own. So then inquiry-based, it's like doing science.
Yeah,
Yes.
as opposed to like listening to the lectures and write all the answers
Yes.
down
Yes.
to your notebook and recite.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's very hands-on. So I think that's a reason why in the US we always see something that's like very new, like Google Classroom. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Google Classroom, Seesaw, and all of these like online platform, they came even before COVID. So then the US is like, they're very far. They're doing like virtual reality. They're using AI in classroom, and even the research lab that I work with. So then they're even trying to develop all the technology to improve teaching in schools.
Right.
Yeah.
So having seen all that and having been to many places that they are kind of super advanced with the way they groom and teach their kids to be a quality population. Looking back to Thailand, like now that you're moved back here. So what do you think is the most concerning part of the Thailand education nowadays?
Right. I think it's going to be the outdated curriculum and then the teaching pedagogy. So how you teach it. Instead of, I think in Thailand, it's still very content based. So then they really put an emphasis on academic and then a lot of content. There's so many topics, like we need to cover all of it. It's like memorization. But then instead, what we should do is that we should make it more hands-on, more project-based. Like you get to really do it, because through project-based learning, you get to develop creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, which all of these skills, they are important for the future. Like what we mentioned earlier, right? These are all the skills that we need in the future.
Yeah,
and
that
then,
looks like real life too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
once they're done with school, this is what they're gonna be faced with.
Yeah, and then it's gonna motivate them more. They're gonna be more engaged with schooling because the things that they're learning, they're highly related to the world.
Wow. So I think I want to talk more about all these kids and education and development, because well, I'm not great with kids, but I know how important they are for the future. And I think it's great to have a person like you that knows exactly how to interact with them, how to teach them, and how to get them engaged. So let's move on to our little segment of the show. We called it คำนี้ดีไหม So is it all this a good word? So I think this is like right up your alley too. So I want to hear about your opinions on each word. So you get to give the score to each of the word that I give you. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So just write down the score on the whiteboard here. Okay, all right. The first one, well, talking about like kids and small kids. The word is baby talk. What do you think about baby talk? Because, like automatically when we engage in a conversation with small kids,
right.
I would go to เสียงสอง ทันที for some reason, and everybody's the same way.
Yes.
Right? And but I've heard that actually baby talk is not that good of a thing. So some might say, well, we should talk to kids like we talk to adults.
Right.
So I heard both. What is your take on this?
Do you have to write a score?
Yeah.
Okay.
The score for the word baby talk.
Baby talk.
On the score of 1 to 10.
Should I do the score
Yes,
now?
please.
It's a 10.
10. Okay, so no downside whatsoever
downside.
from your opinion.
I think baby talk is so cute.
Yeah.
And then when you talk to them, it's more engaging and they can connect with you more. And the tone of voice that you use, it's like more than sing song. It's like sing sleep. It's like your pitch is like so high. Like
you could go as high as you can.
Yeah, it's like, are you having fun? It's like it's so high, right? But then the point about baby talk is that I think any talk, it's important. It's good. But then I think baby talk, sometimes it may mean that you're trying to like babble some words back to them. They're going to try to talk to you, but then they don't really get to learn like the real words, right?
I see.
So I think you need to be careful in the kind of, as in like, you can do baby talk, but then it's also important to talk like adults to them. So then they get to understand that humans, we talk with words. They're like sentences. We go back and forth. And that is very important for their language development.
Like try to help them make sense
Yes.
of the words that they're using, but
Yes.
it's still okay to use the tone
Yeah,
that would
for sure.
that would like
Yes.
resonate with them.
Yes. So like, even if they're so young and then you think that they don't understand, but it's still very important for you to talk about it, right? So then maybe you go to the kitchen, you be like, okay, mommy is cooking for you.
Yeah.
Mommy's cooking for you. And then whatever you do, mommy is buying oranges and things like that. So then it's very important for you to narrate your life like throughout the day. So then they get to like get to learn like new vocabs and new words. Like even asking them question
Of
helps
course,
too.
that would help with the language learning
Yeah.
also, right? You can choose to talk to them in whatever language you want them to
Yes.
learn.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what's gonna happen if I decided that I want to use the adult voice and no baby talk in the เสียงสอง but just keep it like very formal.
Very
But my
formal.
content could be like kids friendly.
Okay.
But what if I want to keep my tone like as an adult?
I think it's fine.
Really?
Yeah, I think
it's not gonna like hurt or scar them.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think what matters is the content, but then I think it's when you use baby talk, it's also more engaging and more fun for you. Right? So when you see their reaction that they're like excited, that, like you're using high pitch, they became more engaged. So the conversation becomes more interesting. I think you're gonna tend to want to talk more with them, right? So then if it's like a normal adult's voice, you might not get as engaging reaction from
Right.
them.
So this is kind of voice I use in the meeting room, and I don't want to use that around the house with my kids.
Yes.
Yeah. It is fun. It is more fun to talk in like baby talk sometimes.
Yeah,
Right.
they're gonna
Okay.
grow, right? You're not gonna get to use baby talk for a long time.
But I do love the point that you made earlier about helping them make sense of the
Yes.
words. Don't babble back.
Yeah, not
And-
just babbling back.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay. Next word.
Yeah.
The word is pretty controversial, I think. Spanking.
Oh,
Yeah. So are you a fan of spanking?
so for spanking, I will have to give a -10.
Whoa, the
I'm not-
minus. So no spanking
No
in your book.
spanking.
Okay. How would you discipline your own kids?
So then for spanking, it's according to research, they said that for adults, right? So it's like spanking, you stop the problem in the short term. If you wanted to stop doing something, it works only in the short term, but then in the long term, it's not going to teach them. And then it's going to
So it's helping you, not helping them,
yes,
right?
yes, it's like more convenient for you. It's like bam, and then they're gonna stop doing it. But then what's gonna happen is that there is gonna be like a wound in their heart that stays for a long time. So the physical pain is gonna go away very quickly, but then the things that happen in their heart is gonna can stay for a long time. And then I think that it ruins your relationship with the bond between the kids and
Definitely,
the
yeah.
adults. So then for me, I think a way that's works better than spanking, it's to give them timeouts.
I have heard about that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And you think this is like way better. How?
I think it's way better because timeout, how it works is that you put them maybe in a corner, like a quiet corner, and
Facing the wall?
you can face the wall.
Okay.
And then it's like a time for them to calm down. And then so when they're like with their emotions, they're very big with emotions. When their emotions are very high, it gives them a peaceful time to calm down and to reflect and to think. So after they calm down a little bit, then you can go in and then you can ask like, okay, are you ready to come back? Have you calmed down enough? Like, are you ready to join us back? So we're not trying to tell the kids that like, okay, you go away, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's just giving you space and giving us space to like calm down. And then once like the child it's like calm, right? So then you can ask the child, like, okay, like, so what happened? You can have a great conversation, a meaningful conversation to reflect on the problems just happen. And I think when it comes with like communication, it works much better. You teach them much better. And then there is actually like a rule of thumb. They said that if they're like 2 years old, you give 2 minutes timeout. 3 years old, 3 minutes timeout, like that. Yeah.
Okay. I see. So that's an option, the alternative that
Yes.
you might want to try.
Yeah.
Okay. How about this word? This is like, I think it's a big buzzword at some point, and I still hear it a lot these days. The EF, the executive function.
Right.
Yeah. It seems like a big deal, right? This word. It's like-
Yes.
yeah.
I'll give an 8.
Okay.
So then I'll give an 8 because it's very important. It's true. So executive functioning, it's like the CEO of your brain. it's like control. It's like a control panel, and then it helps you with planning, like thinking, help with memory, help with making decisions. But it's really a buzzword. Like you mentioned, it used to be a very buzzword. I remember I was staying abroad, and when I came back to Thailand, I just saw like EF like everywhere.
Right.
And I was like, oh, wow. I was
Yeah.
very surprised. So then I think what would be more useful is to understand what is under EF. Because EF is a very big umbrella of skills. I think we should focus on all the skills that is under EF.
Okay. For example?
Yeah, for example, you can think about like planning, right? So like taking action, decision making, like
time
taking
management,
time
stuff like
management,
that?
like steps, like taking steps. It's like critical thinking as well, problem solving as well. So then I think we should focus on the little skills under it. So then it's more approachable. Like you can
Manageable
really,
too.
manageable.
Yeah.
That you can really develop those skills. Yes,
Right.
and then I also think that there should be more buzzword like social emotional learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to admit, this is like the first time that I hear this word. Yeah, and I think this is very interesting too. Yeah, people should put more focus on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So EF, 8.
Yeah, 8.
How about screen time? It's such an
Screen
important
time.
word, right?
Yeah, it's such an important
Yeah.
word.
Especially for parents, I think.
Yes. I give a 10.
Oh, another 10.
Another 10 for screen time.
Right. Do you have screen time for yourself? Like screen time limitation?
No, because I work a lot on the screen.
Okay. It'll be
work
hard
until
for
I
you if
drop.
you limit
Yes.
your screen time to yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But for kids, of course, right?
But for kids, so then screen time is a very important word. So that's why I give a 10. I just feel like whenever we say screen time, there is like a negative connotation out of
Right.
out of the words.
Yeah.
Like you feel like, okay, screen time. It's like bad, right? But then actually screen time can also be good, can be good. It depends on how you use it. So according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, they said that under 2 years old, you shouldn't use screen at all. You shouldn't let young kids to be in the same room as an adult that is watching a TV as well. Even if they're just like running around playing with something else, there shouldn't be a screen in the background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard on the parents,
Yes.
actually.
Yes. They need to change their lifestyle. And the grandparents too.
Whoa.
Right?
You have to get everybody on board. Like
Yes.
everyone
Yeah.
knows screen time. Okay.
I know that it's very hard.
And how long
to
did you
do.
say it for the first, how many years?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years. It's because the screen, what is harmful about the screen is that it's very engaging. It has like lights, colors, like sound.
Very hypnotizing.
Yeah, so all the toddlers, when there's a screen, they're gonna look at the screen, right? Because even for adults, right? So
And
then
get zombified.
Yeah.
Very easily.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. So then when they're attached to the screen, they're gonna think that everyday life is boring, right? So like all the simple things in life is very boring, and then it's gonna hurt their language development too, right?
Okay.
So instead of spending the time to talk with your family members, you spend the time watching cartoon, and then that is detrimental. But then screen time can be good, right? So then it depends on how you use it. So then they recommend, there's a research that back up this recommendation is that adults should guide the kids. So then you shouldn't let kids use the screen time by themselves. There should be an adult that is guiding the kids, like sitting together, and then we can talk about the content that's on the screen together, use it together. And then another thing is the quality of activity that you do on the screen time. It really matters, right? So then are you just watching, just consuming something that is not very educational, or can you maybe create a coding project with your parents, right? Like do something that like learning through creating, being an active user of technology. Yeah, that is the right way for child development, right? So then active user, and then
Would that mean you should not allow your kids, like small kids, to use mobile phone, like too young?
too young, no.
Yeah, because I think it's very concerning when seeing a small kid like doom scrolling, like
Right.
on their phone, on their own too.
Oh,
Like I was like, what are you watching there? And you've been doing that for a long time, and it gets like very concerning for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. So above 2 years old, you can start screen time, but then the amount of time is like limited. So then like 30 minutes per day. So
Yeah.
above 2, so like yeah, but it depends. I think at the end of the day, it depends on the family, on the parents, right? How it works best
Yes,
for them.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
family and parents themselves,
Yeah.
that's a big responsibility on their part to watch what your child
Yes.
is watching.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. How about this word? I'm not a big fan of this word myself. Exam,
Exams.
right? Do you love because you seem like someone who enjoys studying and enjoys school so much. So I
Okay.
guess maybe you wouldn't mind exam that much.
So then exam, I will give a 6.
Oh, okay.
I'll give a 6.
All
It
right.
depends. It depends, right? So then when I was younger, I actually get really stressed out from taking exams, right? I think it's because in my generation, especially, you really care, you really focus on the end outcome. So you really care about the score.
You want to be a straight A student.
Yeah. So you really care about the score. But then these days, what is happening is that you start to care more about the process of learning. So then exams can be good because it's a way for you to check how much you're learning, how much you're understanding. If you're using it in that sense, I think it's very good. But then if you use it just to focus on the final score, then I think that is very stressful.
I even heard that some school they kind of got rid of the exams altogether. Like
Right.
no exams, no more in
Right.
this school. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think it could be a good idea if they found a different way to assess the learning.
Yeah, and what would be the alternative to that?
So then you call it competency-based learning. Oh, competency-based like assessment. So then you actually look at how much you know, how much you can do, how much you understand. So instead of exams, there are many places where you do project-based, right? You show the teachers like what you can really do.
Right. Without the pressure of
Yeah.
the old school traditional way of taking the exam
Right.
that put a stress on
On
us
the kids.
so much.
I know,
Yeah.
right? And then sometimes like you call it the standardized test. I think it's like you don't do like some people they know the stuff, but then they don't do well on the exam, like under the stress as well.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't guarantee
Yeah.
if you're doing good on the exam, you
Yeah.
would do good in life.
It's true.
Right. Yeah. So it's very complicated matters and very delicate process of working together just
Yeah.
to make sure that all the children get to like the true and meaningful end results, right?
Right.
Not just the grade. Wow, tricky, huh? Yeah. Okay. If you had because we talked before and you mentioned one of your dream is having your own school.
Yes.
So would your school have the exams?
So exam is tricky because it depends on the higher system, right? So then if my school it's a traditional school, then if you need a score,
Right.
yeah. So
it totally depends on the kind of
yeah. The learning-
institution you
yeah,
are. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on the educational system. And then when you go to college, do you still look at scores? Like, do you still need GPA? And I think it really depends on that. But then I think it'll be more interesting, like when you're in college, right? You do projects or turn in projects and turn that into scores.
Yeah.
So I think instead of maybe some testing, only a few. Like if it's multiple choice, maybe not that much, but then more about like explaining, writing essays, like
Yeah.
doing projects. I think that
Yeah.
would be more interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned project based so many times.
Yeah.
Obviously, you love it. I love the idea too. Yeah, it's more fun. It's more practical, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's cool. Let's move on to the next word, self-efficacy. So I think this is another buzzword. Maybe not that super popular, but I heard this word like mentioned a lot too. Self-efficacy. Yeah. Do you
Right.
like this word? And what kind of the score that you want to give this word?
Right. Actually, if maybe it's because I've been away for a long time. I don't in Thailand, especially. I don't hear this word as
Oh.
often.
Okay.
But then
Yeah.
I'll give a score.
Yeah. So basically, self-efficacy is like the ability to believe in yourself that
Right,
if
right.
you like try your best, you will achieve stuff like that, right?
Okay, I'm gonna change the score. Okay, so so I think it's a 10.
Okay.
So I really believe that you should believe in yourself, and then self-efficacy it leads to growth mindset. right?
Of course,
And
yeah.
that is very important because you believe they can do it even after failures, after disappointments, and then you just believe that you just keep hanging on in there and then you're going to succeed. And I think that's really important.
And do you think it's the best time for like small kids for us to foster this kind of thinking too, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So then if even at Little Beaver, so then if they destroyed something or something didn't work, like coding didn't work or something, and then when there's a problem, and then I'm going to ask them, if there's a problem, what do you do? And they said, fix it. Yeah. So then it's all about like having the growth mindset, keep fixing, keep trying, and keep believing that you can do it. Or if it's something that's hard, it's fine. Just step by step. Like even computational thinking is teaching you like the step by step process of like solving a problem or a task.
True. Yeah. And that's so important, like skill to believe that it's not, I'm not even sure if it's a skill, but I believe that it could be improved.
Yes.
And it could be taught. So by that definition, it might be a skill. So if you are able to teach yourself to believe in yourself more
Yes.
and trust that in the end, it would work out somehow.
Yes.
I think that is so important.
Yes. Can I say about a different word? There is a phrase, it's called self-fulfilling prophecy.
Ooh.
It's not a word, but then it's like a concept in psychology. It says that whatever you think is gonna happen, right? So then when you go to a fortune teller, and then if they tell you this is gonna happen, and then you're gonna I don't know, trip on the road, and something like that. If you think that it's gonna happen,
It's bound to happen.
It's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
So if you think that you cannot do it, then I think it's gonna be hard for you to to like carry on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Last word on our list today.
Okay.
Are you a gamer? Do you like play games?
I'm not a gamer.
Okay, you're not.
I study all the time. I'm kidding. Just joking.
What do you think about Roblox?
Roblox.
Is huge among
Yes.
kids. It's like their religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roblox?
What score?
What score?
Are you familiar?
I've never played Roblox, but I've heard of Roblox, and a lot of my students played Roblox. So I did research on Roblox as well because I got very curious. I think Roblox, it's a
So what do you observe? What do you see from kids playing Roblox?
so maybe it's a 7.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 7. So I think there are pros in Roblox because it's like you can create games in Roblox, right? It's like they call it like imaginary platform.
Right.
You can create. It's very cool. It's like you can like put trees, put houses, like and then you can make a game, and then you can publish the games to the other people. So I think there are like millions of games like every day.
Right.
But then it helps with critical thinking, with creativity. You use technology to create, right? So that is the right concept. But then the problem is that there is like a chatting function. There's an online chatting function. So then they said that they recommend kids above 13 years old to really use Roblox. So if it's younger than that, they get exposed to, as they said, that people publish their games. It can be aggressive. There can be like violence or horror. And then little kids, when they're using Roblox, they might be exposed to those things, like the mature things that they shouldn't be.
It's not their
seeing.
time.
Yeah,
yet.
it's not their time yet. So I think it's more for like older kids. But for younger kids, I think you have to be very careful. You should disable the chat, right? Because even adults are using Roblox too. So you don't even know
True.
who's talking to your kid.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of.
Yeah.
It could be very creepy if you
Yes.
think about that dark side that
Yeah.
could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, talking to you about kids, I think from what I gathered, so it's a lot has to do with adults. A lot has to do with
Yes.
parents. A lot has to do with like all the brothers or
Right.
teachers. So we kind of have to work together, and it's our responsibility, and it's our doing to how this kid might grow up, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you have to, like I said, like collaborate and
Yes.
and really work together.
Yeah. There is a saying that it takes a village to raise a child.
That's a great saying.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I've mentioned what you told me before about your dream.
Right.
Okay. Tell us more about your dream school?
My dream school, yes. So then I have a dream to start a school. So that is I think that's a dream that's got me into education. So then I would like to start a school since kindergarten. And then I'm very passionate about STEM, right? So then I would like kids to a school to be specialized in STEM. Can I promote STEM a little bit, like STEAM a little bit? So
Yeah.
then it's a very natural way to learn about the world. It's like whatever they play, it's all STEM, it's all STEAM without them knowing. So can I ask you, what do you like to do when you're kids? Like, what do you like to play with?
Oh, okay. I used to want to be a radio DJ, which I got to do.
That's so
I
cool.
used to want to be a writer, which I also got to do. But my earliest dream that I could remember, I wanted to be an astronaut or a
Oh,
pilot, like something that can fly to the sky.
wow.
But those kind of dreams would never be realized just because I suck at math and I suck like at science, all the science part. So it's kind of, yeah, it's just dream, like kids' dreams.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you play or did you play with the plane, or like did you do anything about
All
it?
the time, yeah, all
Right?
the time. But I kind of realized that, oh, my dreams will never become true now because this is not what in the path for me because I do not have the ability to
Right.
even understand simple math.
Right.
So yeah, but I kind of know that okay, I'm a lot better and have more fun with
Right.
the language part. So it kind of
Okay.
like choose my path.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I feel like when you're younger, if you're exposed to STEM or STEAM subjects earlier, then you might feel like you're more relatable, like it's more
Yeah.
relatable to the STEM subjects. And that's the point of learning STEM very early on, right? Because whatever you play with the sand, the water, the wind, it's all STEM. And then it's a very great opportunity for kids to learn more about the knowledge, like about the skill. I mean, like to learn more about STEM subjects
Right.
what they're playing. So then in my school, I would like to be like specialized like STEAM, and then you get to develop your thinking skills, and then all the essential skills like working with others, working as a group, like hands-on learning through creating, and then yes. So then
I think your kind of school might help kids like me. Like even
yes,
though they are not good at math
right,
in the beginning,
right,
it doesn't mean that they can improve and get a better understanding along the way with the right and new teaching techniques or the right mindset of the teacher and instructors.
right, yes,
Who
yes,
knows?
yes,
I could have been an astronaut.
yes. That's self-efficacy.
Yeah, self-efficacy,
Yeah.
of course. And I think before, like in my times, like when I was very little, we were like judged by what subject you do well. That's it.
Right.
If you suck at math,
Yes.
you don't even dream about these kind of jobs.
Right.
You only have these kind of jobs that you can
Right.
aim for. So this is very limiting and very upsetting just to think about it.
Right.
But if we have like the new kind of education, who knows that walls might come down.
That's so true. So that's a great point that you raised, because another point about learning STEM early on, it's that you get to explore and it really gets very hands-on. And then even if you think that you're not a science person, but then there's arts in there, right? There is a
Right.
language part. There is like, it's project-based. So then you get to see how everything works together. And then that will be a good motivation for you to find yourself and
Of
then to
course.
explore. There's so many research saying that learning science and STEM actually helps with language development.
Sure, because like for example, like coding, you have
Yes.
to code in English, right?
Yes, in
and that
English.
would help. You think?
Yes.
With the like linguistic
Yes.
skills
Yes.
developing.
Actually, there's a brain study. They said that the part of your brain that lights up when you're coding is the same part as when you're using language.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because coding is basically another way for you to express yourself, right? To communicate your ideas. And then there are syntax, right? There are like steps, like how languages work, right? You have verb, you have noun, pronoun. It's the same way as coding as well. And then they said that the structure of coding is similar to when you're using language. So then you can practice it at the same time.
Yeah, I see the bright future for you and your school.
Thank
I
you.
think it's gonna go great.
I
I
hope
can't
so.
wait for it to actually happen. Yeah. So we're talking about the future. let's talk about the present time. Tell us more about the Little Beaver Lab. So, what if like some of our audience are like parents or someone who has like small kids and they're interested in sending their kids to Little Beaver Lab?
Right.
What are you gonna do for them?
Right. So then Little Beaver Lab is for focusing on STEAM subjects. So then now we're doing coding and STEAM for kids. And then they get to I think it's more like it's like literacy with STEAM, right? So then it's very fun. And then when you come to like Little Beaver class, usually we have a theme. For each class, we usually read a book, we read a story together. And then, for example, yesterday was on dragons, like finding a dragon.
Ooh.
And then you read a book about dragon, and then you code the robot to find the dragon.
Wow.
And then you even created something for the dragon. Yeah, so there's a component of, there are many things, right? So then there's a component of like literacy, like making, like coding, and then there's science too. So then it's the true meaning of STEAM because all the subjects are combined. Yes.
Imagine a parents like sending their kids to like coding school and then they come back to their house and what do you learn today? Oh, we are talking about dragons all day. It was like, what?
Yes.
Okay, but that's a fun part and that's an important part that it kind of make kids want to stick with coding or the that kind of path them into like the more complicated stuff in the future.
Right. And then another subject is science. So then it's like an English science lab. Right, so then little kids get to do experiments. Get to do they get to develop their scientific thinking. So then that's inquiry based. I mentioned earlier how like you question and then you come up with like you call it hypothesis, but then it's basically guess the answer.
Right.
You guess the answer and then you find out like how do you test for your answer if it's right or wrong, and then like okay, so like what's the result? And then it's a thinking process that's really important for development. It doesn't matter what they're going to do in the future, right? It doesn't matter if they're going to be a scientist or they're going to do something else, they're going to be a writer. But then all of these skills that you're developing, it's really important to whatever you do in the future.
Sounds like fun. Can I join? Might be a little too late now. But okay, I think it's going to be so much fun. Especially when these kids get to study with Crew Aim. Of course, you're teaching and talking to them in English too.
Yes,
it's not just learning about science and coding, but you get the language.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. All together. It's all combined.
Wow, so much fun. You know what? I have never talked about kids with anybody this long before because it's not my strong subject to talk about because it's not like I hate kids, but I just don't know how to like be with them and how to play with them. But well, listening to you, being with kids and teaching them, I think our kids are in good hands if they have like teachers like yourself. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me today on KND. And before we say goodbye today, since our show is called Comedy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Please give us some of your most favorite words in Thai and English.
Okay. So I used to think about this. I used to think that if I get to go back in time and then if I can give a one-word advice to myself in the past, like what will it be?
Okay.
Right? So I think the word will be persevere.
Persevere.
Yes, persevere.
Okay. Didn't you persevere enough already? Because you work so hard with all of your studying and your work too.
So then perseverance is very important. And then I even want myself in the past to keep persevering without giving up, right? So persevering is like you keep showing up. There will be good days, bad days, the days that you don't want to be here, but then you just have to keep showing up. And then you can keep going forward by just showing up.
Yeah, that's a great word. And it could get you places in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Persevere. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. Any word in Thai for us?
Any word in Thai, it has to be เมตตา
เมตตา ต้องกลุ่มหน้าอกขึ้นมาเลย เมตตา ทำไมคิดว่าคำนี้สำคัญมาก Why is it so important?
So then I think like when we use the word metta, right? You think about like compassion, like being kind to someone. The actual meaning of metta is like loving. You feel truly happy when someone else is happy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. As simple as that.
Yes. And then I've been thinking of this word a lot, but then the most like I started to think about this word very deeply when I started teaching, because it's metta. It's something that it's a quality that all teachers should have. Yes, because being a teacher, you need to. It's very mentally and physically like
Yeah.
exhausting, and then you really need metta to be a good teacher, and then to handle the kids,
Yeah.
and then to move forward.
I couldn't agree more. Like from all the news that we heard these
Yes.
days about mean teachers, like incredibly,
Right.
unbelievably mean. And well, we would think that how could they get to be where
I
they
know.
are? And do they realize how important their job is?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I agree. I agree. Great words.
Thank you.
And great talk for today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, you're welcome.
It's my
And-
honor to be here.
Yeah, and maybe we can collaborate somehow in the future together because we're all about education. We're all
Right.
about communication. You mentioned communication so many
Yes,
times too,
yes.
and I agree that is so important. Maybe we can do some project together.
Do you want to teach?
Oh, do you think I can teach
Of
like small kids
course.
too?
Yes, I think they're gonna love you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I might give that a try.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.